rather than being upset at a pandering, lifelong career politician who is faking an accent in order to gain votes in something that could literally change the face of America forever, could change history. They got mad at the comedian who was mocking her. We're up against the woke mob, these people who have placed ideologies above truth, these people who have put feelings above facts, and they will come after you. You can't ridicule, you can't mock, and of all things where truth should be spoken, it should be in a place of comedy, or maybe in the church. Both of those places should be bastions of free speech where it's absolutely protected and nothing is off limits. But that's not the world we're living in these days. We are so offended these days. We're literally taking offendedness and collecting it like it's currency. Like I can spend it, like I'm storing it up. You see, I can offer you something that's offensive. You don't have to take it. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the show. It's the Chad Prather Show. We're glad you are with us. Listen, I want to talk to you today a little bit about cancel culture. We're going to dig into that. I know some of you are thinking, why in the world would we want to talk about something like that? Well, if you've ever been subject to that, I don't like using the word victim. I don't want anybody to be a victim. I don't believe in being a victim. But if you've ever been subject to that, you know how serious it can be. And so I want to talk about that a little bit today. Before we get into it, let me just say that I want you to head over to watchchad.com. That is the most vain internet web address on the planet. Watchchad.com. Head over there. That's where all the fun stuff is. Find me out on the road. Got a lot of stuff coming up pretty much every single weekend from here on out. Going to be somewhere in the country. And I'll be honest with you, because of the cancel culture and just because of the nature of the way things are being treated these days, the opposition, the accusation, the heated politics, the attempted violence, all of the crazy stuff going on in our country, people are unhinged. I honestly don't know how much longer I'm going to go out and do live shows. I'm being very selective about the places I go. So if you want to come hang out with me at a live event, I want you to do that quickly because I don't know. Honestly, do not know what the future looks like for live entertainment. It's gotten to a point where people can't afford to go out to shows. Inflation is such that we've tried to keep our ticket prices what they've always been, but I understand that there's cost of living. People just don't have the spare money to go out and do fun things anymore. So we're being sensitive to all of those things, and I'll tell you, it's very frustrating the days we're living in right now that you can't even go out and have a good evening out, have a few laughs, have a couple of drinks, have a good dinner, and it just costs a fortune to do stuff anymore. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm looking at things. I'm looking at the calendar, looking at the map. I'm being very selective about the places I go, if I go anywhere at all. But I want to get into this cancel culture thing because I've been subject to it here recently. A lot of you have seen me talk about it on social media. And I want to talk to you about what it is, why it doesn't work, and what the differences are between that and, let's say, boycotting something, because there's a very distinct, very big difference in the two things. I want to talk about those deals. First of all, I was on the phone with my buddy Terrence Williams the other day. Most of you know Terrence. Terrence has gone viral for years and years. For the last 10 years, he's made a lot of people laugh. He's a funny comedian. He's made a lot of funny videos. You remember back whenever they canceled, this sounds funny to say, but they canceled Aunt Jemima and Mrs. Buttersworth because they had black women on the bottle and they had black women on the box. And they canceled it. They took Mrs. Buttersworth off. They took Aunt Jemima off. They kept the name of the brand, but they said this is racist. And so they decided to go woke, and they took it off. Now, that wasn't necessarily cancel culture, but right at that period of time, Terrence came out with Cousin T's pancake batter mix. Now, that sounds simple, right? It sounds simple, easy. He came out with Cousin T's pancake batter mix. They were putting it on the shelves in the stores, trying to get it. I talked to him on the phone the other day. They're trying to get it in more grocery stores. But here's the problem. It's got a picture of Terrence on the front of it. He's Cousin T. Terrence is Cousin T. There's a picture of a black man on the cover of the pancake batter box. He's got chicken, batter. He's got all these different things. Cousin T's chicken, mix, whatever. And the man has literally made money with fried chicken. It's been a joke for years, eating fried chicken while he's watching crazy political videos. But they've tried to cancel him out because he put his own face on the box, on the packaging. This is the weird world we're living in. How dare they exploit a person with black skin? It's not exploitation. It's actually a celebration. It's being able to look at someone and say, regardless of the color of your skin, who you are, where you come from. I mean, Terrence comes from a very poor socioeconomic background. He's a child of adoption. I mean, he is an American dream story of success. He pulled himself up. I can remember when Terrence would come to my shows years ago and couldn't even afford to stay in a hotel. He couldn't afford to pay for the hotel to stay. He would go home. He would travel all the way home, turn around and come all the way back the next night and hang out with me the next night. I'd offer to put him up in a hotel. And he'd be like, no, I'm just going to go on home. And he'd travel, a couple of hours to go home, then turn around and come back the next day because he didn't have the money for it. And he is a rags to riches story. And he puts his face on a package and they're going to cancel him over that stuff. Why? Because of what? Racism? He's literally the black man. My friend Jeff Sperrier over in East Texas, the midget from Pritchett, all right? He's a little person in a wheelchair. I've known him for years. And he put T-shirts out that he talked about being the midget from Pritchett, Texas. And they try to cancel him. You can't say midget anymore. You got to say little person. He said, I can put it on the T-shirt. I'm the midget. Now, nobody wants to wear it, but, and they're always in very small sizes. But beyond that, he's got the right to do it if he wants to do it. But they want to cancel you out for anyway, you get the point. You guys know that I love Patriot Mobile. They are good friends and great patriots. And, they realize that Americans are tired. They're tired and frustrated by the stalling economy, the inflation, the endless wars, the relentless assault on our values. And thankfully, folks over at Patriot Mobile, they got your back. They still believe in America. They believe in our Constitution. And I'm so proud over the years to have partnered with them and continue to do it because Patriot Mobile, they're on the front lines, man. They're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're fighting for the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, our military and first responder heroes. I want you to take a stand with them on conservative causes and put America first by switching over to Patriot Mobile today. You're going to get the same nationwide coverage as the big providers because Patriot Mobile, they operate on all three major networks, plus they back their service with a full coverage guarantee. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team will take care of you. They will find the best plan for your needs. You can keep your number, keep your phone, or you can upgrade, and they'll help. Go to patriotmobile.com/Chad or call them 972-PATRIOT. You do it right now, you get a free month when you use the offer code CHAD. I spell it Chad. Use that offer code and don't get fooled by the other providers pretending to share your values or have the same coverage. They don't, and they can't. So join me. Switch to America's only Christian conservative mobile provider. That's Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/Chad. Call them 972-PATRIOT. Get your free month of service today. Use that promo code Chad. Hang tight. We'll be right back. So a couple of weeks ago, I put out a video. Many of you saw it. TikTok took it down. Instagram took it down. I think it's out there on Truth Social. I think it's still out there on Facebook here and there. I made a video in which I made fun of, I mocked, I ridiculed, I confess I did it. I mocked Kamala Harris. Because Kamala Harris, whenever she gets in front of an audience, she becomes a chameleon. She panders to whatever that audience is. And that audience, particularly in Detroit and in Atlanta, she immediately went into a Southern black accent, dialect, a quote, black accent, if you will. She doesn't talk like that. She has always boasted her Indian American heritage. A little background on Kamala Harris, that person who has not received a single vote, who's not earned a single delegate, but somehow has become the presidential nominee, the candidate for the Democratic Party. A little something about Kamala Harris that you may or may not know. She comes from her mother comes from India. Her mother is a migrant. She comes to America. She's married to a Jamaican. Her Jamaican father leaves when she's 5 years old. She's raised by her mother. Every year her mother takes her to India. She's always been very proud of her Indian heritage. When you look at her, when she's brought into the Senate, when she becomes a senator, you know how they take the pictures with the vice president or whoever there. And at the time, it was Joe Biden who was vice president of the United States. And all of her Indian family are standing around there. She's done everything she can to hide all of these Indian family members in the last year because, again, she's adopted this idea that she is a woman of color, and therefore when you say that, she must be black. Well, she's quite simply not black. Not African-American, as you would define it. She's not African-descended black, as they would define that. Jamaican, yes. And yes, you could argue, well, African, but I promise you, Jamaicans, they're Jamaican, okay? They're Jamaican, just like Americans are American. But again, we've got all these labels and delineations and all this bullshit that's out there that everybody's trying to come up with the different categories that they fit in. It's stupid. And then if you get the wrong, ask Tiger Woods what happened when he called himself a Caucasian, black, Asian, an Indian, Cabling Asian, I think is what he said. And the black community went crazy. Not all the black community, but a lot of people went crazy. Oprah went crazy because how dare he not embrace, his black roots. It's stupid is the point. Everybody's got to label themselves, got to characterize themselves. And Kamala is playing into that. It's pandering BS. And so she went into her little black accent, all right, her little black accent that she's never used before. She gives a speech in Pennsylvania, gives a speech in Detroit. She uses the exact same words. She talks about, you better thank a union member. And then another time she says, you better say thank you to union members. So you see the difference. And so I mocked that. She's on with Mindy Kaling cooking Indian dishes, and then the next minute she's talking about 2024. And now people got mad at me for mocking that accent. Now, it wasn't my accent. It was mocking her for doing it. And then I went off, like a black evangelist or a black TV preacher on the whole thing, talking about a hot sauce in a purse. And somebody said to me, is that what you think about black women? We carry hot sauce in our purse? No, I don't actually. That's particularly what Hillary Clinton said about black people, okay? So again, I want you to think critically here. I'm mocking what they said. But again, I'm the guilty party because look at me. I'm obviously the person who, is the person they've got to come after. I'm the white, heterosexual, Christian guy that wears the cowboy hat, sits in his pickup truck with a dog in the back seat. So I'm the easy target. So the TikTok mob came after me. Honestly, for a week of it happening, I didn't even realize it was happening. I didn't even know it was going on. I didn't even know. The comments were there. I mean, everything they said, no matter what I put out there, no matter what was out there, they went back, they tracked it back. I was racist. They were going to come get me. They were going to come beat me up. They were sending out the death threats. They were going to call the venues. They were going to send out the emails. They were going to leave the voicemails, the phone calls, blah, blah, blah. They were going to blow up their Yelp reviews, their Google reviews. And they did that. Now, a lot of venues get that a lot of times. A lot of places out there, whether it's a comedy club, a theater, whatever, they get people who don't like a particular person who's coming to town, and so they start engaging in cancel culture, and they see who bites. Well, Comedy Club of Kansas City, they bit. They said, oh, we can't have, Chad can't come in and do a weekend of shows here. He can't. We sold out every show. Now, normally we come in Thursday, Friday, Saturday night. We do a show on Thursday, then 2 on Friday, 2 on Saturday. Last time we pretty much sold the place out. And they said, nope, this year we're not going to do it. We got to clear it out. We're going to catch too much shit. Our Google reviews are going to be bad. Our Yelp reviews are going to be bad. People are going to be protesting. And we said, listen, dude, all that's going to die down in a week. And he goes, sorry, can't do it. It's going to ruin my Yelp reviews. I might lose my Facebook business page if everybody starts blowing it up. Somebody the next day sent me an email that was from the comedy club that said, here is the cancellation letter. We're disappointed that you're not going to be there. We're sorry that you canceled. Well, I didn't cancel it. They canceled me. So I posted a picture of the email from the comedy club to the patron. And of course, you being who you are, my audience, you did what you do best, and that is you started as an actual paying customer, as an actual patron. You blew up their Yelp review and their Google review. So the poor guy there in Kansas City couldn't catch a break. Now, he didn't ask for that fight, and I could appreciate the dilemma he found himself in because now he's got a bunch of basement dwellers who have never darkened his door, who are blowing up his email and sending bad Google reviews if they have me in. So he tries to cancel me. I just make my people aware that I've been canceled, and now my people who actually do buy the tickets will never darken his door again because he failed in his response. Now, what was the proper response? He should have just kept his mouth shut and let it blow over, and in the next month, when I get to Kansas City, it will be forgotten and old news. But he caved to the woke mob, and that's what so many people are doing these days. They're caving to the woke, non-customer mob, because they have a loud voice. And it can seem very loud. It can be deafeningly loud whenever that happens. So I feel for, and you know, there was another place, Omaha, Nebraska. They decided they wanted to postpone. That was their way of doing it. And maybe that's the right response. Because if you do that the proper way, we're going to postpone the show. Maybe we'll have you back next year. Maybe you can kiss my ass, because if you're going to postpone me, I'm not coming back. Like, either have the balls to do this or not. And by the way, comedy is comedy. Now, Jesse Payton had the very, very funny comedian Trey Tutson on his podcast. They co-host the Unapologetic podcast together. Trey's black. Trey's one of the funniest comedians out there. One of the quickest minds I've ever been around. And Jesse asked him, he said, okay, let's watch this video that Chad did. It's over the top. He's stupid. We know. But that's what Chad does. He puts his foot in his mouth all the time. Now, Trey, was this racist? Trey said no. He said, I don't think that's racist at all, because he didn't come after an entire population of people. He didn't come after, an entire race. He didn't come after an entire gender. He didn't come after a whole ideology or lifestyle preference. He came after one person. That particular person was Kamala Harris, who is the Democratic candidate for president. That is quite literally what they call punching up in comedy. Now, it'd be one thing to punch down, and that's when you go after the people who can't defend themselves. But when you go after a presidential candidate, that's punching up. I'd say that's reasonably free game unless you get into violent rhetoric. We were literally making fun of one person. And so rather than being upset at a pandering, lifelong career politician who is faking an accent in order to gain votes in something that could literally change the face of America forever, could change history. Rather than being upset that she's doing that or that anyone would do that, they got mad at the comedian who was mocking her. Because honestly, most of those people are so stupid, I don't even think they realize that Kamala ever said those things or said it in those ways. I don't think they're smart enough. I don't think they're researched enough. I don't think that they're aware that she ever even did it. So they just thought that I was saying, okay, she's trying to be a black person. Now, that would be racist, but it wasn't. It wasn't. And I made the post on there. I was like, listen, I've delivered babies in Africa. I've been all over this world. I met my first wife in Nigeria, for crying out loud. We could go on and on down that little rabbit trail, but let me tell you something. It's hard to make the whole claim of racism stick to me. But the reason they use terms like racist or whatever label they put on you is because they don't have the critical thinking skills or the intellectual honesty or the ability to operate in a market of free ideas to the point where they could say, okay, this is what we want to debate. We disagree with you on these grounds. They don't have the complexity of thought to be able to disagree with you intellectually and intelligently. So therefore they label you and categorize you, and ultimately they try to cancel you. See, that's what's happening. They don't come out and say, okay, look, you said one thing, you did one thing, therefore we're going to say, look, this is where this was wrong. This is what we disagree with. We don't like this aspect of what you said. And then they listen to why you said it or why you did it. And they go, okay, we see what you're saying. Maybe we can agree to disagree. They don't do that at all. They just go into cancel culture because that's easy for them. And they get a dopamine hit from having done it. They get a joy from being a part of that mob in joining the parade, getting in that crowd. And it actually makes them feel good about themselves because they have this sense of entitlement that their opinion is better and more accurate than everybody else's, and they're not astute enough to research anybody else's opinion to see if it has a modicum of authenticity and genuineness and truth. Hey guys, you ever stare at a stack of bills that are sitting there on your kitchen counter and you think to yourself, man, I earned plenty of money. How can I be this far in debt still? Well, I want to remind you that thanks to COVID and some record inflation numbers, 1 in 4 Americans have maxed out their credit cards. And now you're so trapped in debt, there seems to be no way out, and you just expect that's going to be your way of life. But listen, there may be a way out, and it's with Better Debt Solutions, and here's why. Because not all debt settlement companies are created equal. Better Debt Solutions has saved clients over $1.5 billion. That's $1.5 billion with a B dollars. That's a ton of money, man. Better Debt Solutions has fast-acting strategies designed to put money back into your pocket month one if you qualify for their program. So you need somebody to stand between you and the bill collectors to stop the threats and the harassing calls. I know you're sick of them, and you can stop it with Better Debt Solutions. Those folks and their partners are going to implement your personalized plan with one main goal, and that's to reduce your credit card and personal loan debt. But listen, some of those strategies are time sensitive, so you need to move quickly. That means now. I want you to get in touch with them. Better Debt Solutions. You can trust them to help settle your debt faster and easier than you thought possible. So I want you to visit betterdebtnow.com/Chad for your free consultation. betterdebtnow.com/Chad. One more time, that's betterdebtnow.com/Chad. Here we are. We're up against the woke mob. These people who have placed ideologies above truth. These people who have put feelings above facts. And they will come after you. You can't ridicule, you can't mock. And of all things where truth should be spoken, it should be in a place of comedy or maybe in the church. Both of those places should be a place when you walk in the door, you should expect to be stretched, taken out of your comfort zone. Let's expose the darkness a little bit. Let's really put a magnifying glass on our faults. Both the comedy club, a place where ridicule and mocking is in the job description, or in the church where I'm trying to get you to change, repent, get a different mindset, get you to transform your heart. Those things that are going to take you on a journey that you maybe did not wake up this morning and choose to go on. Both of those places should be bastions of free speech where it's absolutely protected and nothing is off limits. But that's not the world we're living in these days. You know, I hearken back reminding people to the fact that the free speech laws or the speech laws that existed in this country in the 1950s, where people like comedians Lenny Bruce or George Carlin were literally put in jail for doing comedy because they were vulgar or they said things that upset the common conscience of whatever, average or high society in America. They didn't want those kind of ideas and thoughts getting out there. So they put them in jail for that. I think that whenever we get into woke comedy, where we start protecting certain categories and classes and castes of people to where they're off limits, I think you're literally putting in the nail in the coffin for comedy. Comedy has to be off color. Comedy has to be off limits. Comedy has to be out of bounds. Comedy has to be that place where you wouldn't go by yourself. You have to be guided into a place where you are led to the edge of the cliff and you can choose to jump or we can shove you off. But either way, it's going to be a free fall. It's going to be a ride. You're on this roller coaster. We're going to take you there. Now, you don't have to think it's funny because comedy also, humor is subjective. There's nothing out there that's funny for everybody. If I put a social media post out there and said, I want you to tell me a comedian that you'll never think is funny, there will be a list of 500 different people out there. And you'll tell me you've never laughed at Will Ferrell. You've never laughed at Chris Rock. You've never laughed at Kevin Hart. You've never laughed at Dave Chappelle. You've never laughed at, whoever, Chad Prather, Jesse Payton, Trey Tootson. You've never laughed at any of those guys. And that's okay. There's no demand. There's no requirement for you to think that's funny. But there is a demand on the side of comedy and humor. And I say all this, and it matters because 99% of you who listen to this, you'll never try doing comedy, and that's okay. But let me tell you what you will try. You will try free speech. And they're coming for free speech. The government's doing it. Now, again, them trying to cancel you out or a comedy club canceling a weekend of dates, That's not a violation of the First Amendment. Let's be real clear. The First Amendment talks about your ability to speak freely without the government coming in and interfering, all right? There's a huge difference in that. A private entity, a business, some people who have some skin in the game financially, they have the right to cancel that business transaction because they have whatever reason they want. This is a free market. They can do whatever they want to do. Now, there may be some legalities there, like, for instance, a signed contract that says, okay, I'm going to be here, and if you cancel me within 30 days of the event, well, you got to pay me. Maybe you got to pay me the whole thing. Maybe you got to pay me 50%, but either way, you got to pay me. So there's legalities there, but we're not talking about a First Amendment issue. But it can lead to a First Amendment issue if we don't pay attention to the fact that the words we're saying can be policed. One of the quickest ways to make sure the First Amendment remains protected is when you have certain places that have been set apart, sanctified, if you will, for free speech to be exercised freely and exponentially. One of those places, as I said, is a comedy club. It's a place where comedy is happening. There's some over-the-top stuff. There's some things you probably shouldn't say. Just because you have the right to say it doesn't make it right to say it. So I'm not just saying everything is just wide open and it's free game, however you want to do it. I don't believe there's a place for speaking threats or danger or pushing people into a situation that circumstantially can be bad for them or unhealthy or dangerous or whatever. I don't think there's a place for, consistently insulting people just for the sake of doing that. That's not comedy, folks. Let's define that, all right? That's not comedy. Now, mocking and ridicule, that might be in the job description of doing comedy, but mocking and ridicule in and of itself is not comedy, all right? So we have to get back to a place where we have the freedom to make fun of things, to laugh at things. And, as the book of Proverbs says, that it is the glory of a man to not take offense. We are so offended these days. We're literally taking offendedness and collecting it like it's currency, like I can spend it, like I'm storing it up. You see, I can offer you something that's offensive. You don't have to take it. You don't have to embrace it. You can hear the roofers knocking on the door. We won't get there's a roofer on my roof right now banging on the cave. If you can hear it, that's what's going on. It's nobody, I promise you, this is not a ditty party. Nobody's trying to get out. All right. Gio's sitting over there. He's laughing. Nobody's in the closet. Jay-Z doesn't have anybody captive. Okay. We don't even have any baby oil not one bottle of baby oil in the house. P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, Puffy, whatever the hell he calls himself. There's no kids here. There's no bottles of baby oil. They found 1,000 bottles of baby oil in P. Diddy's house. If you can't make fun of that, and you're like, oh, but they were trafficking people. I understand that. It's tragic and it's dangerous and it's deadly and it's sad. But if you can't make fun of some of that stuff, see, that's a perfect example of comedy right there. It's like Steve Harvey said, you don't want to be in the mind of a comedian because when a tragedy happens, we have the jokes written that day. If you could hang around with me and Jesse and Trey and Dustin Sims, Zach Rushing, Ben Daniel, Kenny Webster, some of our buddies, if you could hang around with some of us, Chad Thornsberry, great comedian out of the Kansas City, Missouri area. Good buddy of mine. If you could hang around some of these guys, oh, you'd be offended. You'd be offended because it gets dark. It gets real dark. There's things that I personally could never say on a stage because it's not my brand, but it's funny. It makes me laugh. Most of the stuff out there that makes me laugh, you would think is absolutely disgusting. But hey, that's the nature of humor. The more dark it is, sometimes I find the funnier it is for me. You may not feel that way. That's okay. You guys might read the Guidepost or the Reader's Digest and read the little jokes out of there and think those are hilarious. Me personally, I don't. So you can keep your knock-knock jokes and I'll talk about, never mind. We'll just leave it at that. But hey, this is a protection issue for speech. So the difference between cancel culture and let me check my clock here, Gio. How long have we gone so far? Are we doing okay? 26 minutes. Okay, I got a little more time to preach. 26 minutes in. The difference between cancel culture and boycotting is stark. Okay. First of all, let me get a sip of my Celsius here. Man, we need Celsius as a sponsor for this show. I only let myself drink one a day, and it takes me an hour and a half to drink these things because I go so slow. I savor it. But, I'm sober, so I have to have some little guilty pleasures around here. Boycotting is what we did with Bud Light, all right? Boycotting is what people have done with the NFL. Boycotting is what people have done with Nike or whoever it may be. Name your brand. Dick's Sporting Goods when they decided to stop selling guns. And the reason behind it, listen, Dick's Sporting Goods, they could have come out and just stopped selling guns and nobody would have batted an eye. But they actually stated their reason why they were going to do it. And a lot of people disagreed with their reason why. And so they decided to boycott Dick's Sporting Goods. I know people to this day, they're outdoorsmen. They refuse to step foot in a Dick's Sporting Goods. All right, that's fine. To each their own. Now, me personally, I'm not huge into boycotts. There's a few things out there that I like. I have not had a Bud Light. I used to drink Bud Light, Gio, back in the day, which I don't drink anymore, so it doesn't matter. But back in the day, Bud Light was what I drink. If I was going to have a beer, which was rare, but if I was going to have a beer, simple and easy, just going to have a Bud Light. I quit touching Bud Light. I was at a venue up in Alaska. Our friends JD and Jory, they've got the Spur in Fairbanks. We did a couple of nights shows and spent some time with them at the Spur in Fairbanks, Alaska. And the subject of Bud Light came up, and she said, "I can't tell you the last time we've sold a Bud Light." I mean, the people nobody's selling Bud Lights. This is a couple of years now after they, tapped Dylan Mulvaney to be not a spokesperson, but just kind of an influencer, if you will. And people said, "No, we're not going that route." And a lot of people said, "Oh, you guys are so triggered by a dude dressed up like a woman." Well, again, it got back to the why. Why do it? Why are you doing it? What's the point? Bud Light is historically, Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser, the Clydesdales, the Dalmatians sitting on the wagon. This is a historically American traditional brand, even though it's not American anymore. And we're going, why? Why do it? You didn't have to throw that in anybody's face, but they chose to do it. And so the little people, the people like me, people like you, we decided to get together and we just said, we're not going to drink it. And it hurt them to the tune of billions and billions and billions of dollars. They had to stand up, and all they had to do all along was apologize. They still never have. They've still never come out and issued an apology. And you said, "Well, I thought you were unapologetic." Now, me personally, I am. But again, they don't have to apologize. I'm not demanding they apologize. I'm just not going to drink their beer. I'm not interested in their brand anymore. Because again, if they chose that to shove that in my face. And again, I don't care. I don't care while we're down this rabbit trail. I don't care if a man dresses up in a dress and claims to be a woman. I don't care. I don't find it appealing. I don't find it to me, it's a certain level of mental illness, but I deal with mental illness on the daily basis, whether it's wearing women's clothing or not. I deal with all kind of crazy ass people, and I'm willing to let them go. So I don't care if you put on pantyhose. But when you refer to yourself as a girl and your days of girlhood, and then you start pandering to a younger audience, then I start looking at that as being a little bit nefarious and saying, I don't think this is such a good idea. And I say, let's put this person, back over here where we don't have to deal with them instead of putting them in the mainstream where it can influence children. That to me matters. And they decided to make this person an influencer for Bud Light. And I just said, I'm out. That's a boycott. Boycott is from the bottom up. Cancel culture is from the top down. Cancel culture is when the mob, the powers that be, where the corporations shut you out, where the venues shut you out, where the theaters shut you out, or the comedy clubs say, we're not going to do it, or they band together and say, we're not going to do it. It's when the mob comes together and says, we're going to come after the one. See, the difference between boycotting, like, for instance, Bud Light, a lot of people came together. You could call that a mob, if you will. A crowd of people, a mob of people came together and said, we're going to go after this huge multi-billion-dollar conglomerate that's way more powerful than we are as individuals. But cancel culture is when the mob comes after the one person and says they can't stand against us. And so we're going to break them down. Now, the problem is cancel culture never works. Boycotting works. Ask Bud Light. Boycotting works because that's like the movie Bug's Life, where Hopper, the grasshopper, who's kind of the kingpin of the whole deal, who says, man, if all these ants out here ever realize that they far outnumber us, then we're in trouble. See, the boycotting works, but the cancel culture never does. And the reason it doesn't work, cancel culture, is because it always comes from a place of entitlement. And that entitlement gets easily exposed real quick. What I mean by that is, some places in the world, and historically speaking, they'd stone people. The phrase stone him in the Hebrew, we used to walk around when I was in seminary, we'd walk around screaming, Rahumu, which was Hebrew for stone him. If we were joking with one of our buddies and he did something dumb, he'd say, Rahumu, we'd say stone him. But that's stoning somebody. The modern version of that is canceling them. And that comes from a place of superiority, a place of entitlement. Somebody says something that's offensive to you, you got to stone them. You got to cancel them. You don't like what somebody has to say or does, then you ruin their livelihood because they hold a belief that opposes what you believe. You're not big enough intellectually. You're not big enough with your conviction to be able to handle it yourself. And so our society has become one of entitlement, where people think that everything is about them, the world turns around them, and everybody's got to be coddled, and anybody that makes them feel a negative emotion, well, you got to stone them. You got to just cancel them, because let's get rid of anything that makes me feel anger or sadness or depression or anxiety or stress. How dare anyone say something that hurts my fee-fees? So now you have entitled people that feel like their opinion is of higher value, and so they band together and they try to destroy the people, and then they get their dopamine hit. They get the enjoyment out of it. So that's why I think cancel culture sucks. I think it sucks. When the mob comes after the one, you got a problem. Boycotting is when the mob goes after the big conglomerates, the big powers that be. That's revolutionary. That's actually a good thing. It can be. It can be stupid too, but it can be a very good thing. It's effective. But the cancel culture doesn't work. And the reason it doesn't work is because now, a week later, after that club in Kansas City got all the emails, all the voicemails, all the crap sent their way, no one on TikTok is attacking me anymore. No one is coming after me with, you got on TikTok. I texted Jesse Payton a week or so ago, and I said, go to my TikTok and read the comments. He goes, under which post? I said, pick one. Just pick one. Because I was the most racist person in America. All because I made fun of Kamala Harris and her fake pandering, politicking accent. And everybody was calling me a racist. Everybody was threatening me. We're going to show up. We're going to prove, blah, blah, blah. That's not new to me. I've gotten threats many, many times, folks. And trust me, I don't travel light, if you know what I'm saying. I'm in a lot of cities in America, baby, and I don't travel light. So your personal threats of violence against me, I don't want to face off on any of that stuff, but just trust me, I don't travel light. So, and I don't travel alone either, just so you're aware. So let me just say, those things, those accusations, all that crap, there's plenty of people that have hated me for a long time. I'm a person with pretty strong opinions, Sometimes I hate myself for those opinions. But I understand what it's like to be disliked. And I've got pretty thick skin, and it's okay with me because it's never slowed me down. And those of you who have followed me long enough, I don't shy away from a good little controversy or a little pot stirring, okay? But all that stuff died down. But here's the issue. The comedy club in Kansas City, they've now had to go back and scrub their Yelp reviews, scrub their Google reviews. Yeah, you can do it. You can pay to have it all scrubbed, get all those 1 stars removed from you, all those negative comments. They had to do all of that. And they're paying patrons, the customers, the people who would have been a part of their audience. They're never going to go back there again. So the woke mob that was like fleeting dust that blew off in the wind because they got pissed off and now have moved on to their next target. The ones that you really affected, or this ultimately going to affect your business, were the paying customers who, they're not coming. They're not sitting naked on a lawn chair on mom's dial-up internet in the basement, sending out their threats in their emails. They're not doing that. And can I just say, if you've hung with me this long in this deal, that when you look at the political discourse that's going on in this country, comedy is the least of your worries. I mean, what a humorist, what a comedian says. Yeah, and I want you to remember too that a lot of times you have to try jokes to see if they work. That's why you go do some open mics, or you get in front of a smaller audience. Sometimes you try new bits. I've got the bit that I've been playing with for the last couple of weeks about how I got roofied at a midget convention. A lot of that story's true. I actually did that with a little person in the room recently. He loved it, by the way. He loved it. And you guys know me. You know I love everybody. And you know I make fun of everybody. I don't care if you're gay, straight, black, white, male, female, fat, skinny, identify as he, him, they, them, she, her, as she, him. I don't give a shit what you think you are. I'm making fun of you because I'm going to make fun of myself 85% of the time, and I get to make fun of you too. So that's what we do in comedy. But you got to try the jokes. You got to put them out there to see if they hit. And if they don't hit, you scrap them and you go back to the drawing board. But here's the thing. The discourse that's going on in our country right now, I mean, you saw that the DOJ just put out the manifesto that was written after the arrest of, Ryan Roth, the guy who crawled into the bushes with the intention of assassinating Donald Trump there on the golf course. They put out his manifesto. They never put out the manifesto of the trans shooter in Nashville that went to the Covenant School and shot it up and killed, 7 people? They never put out the manifesto, and the reason is because the DOJ said, we don't want anybody doing a copycat version of this and going out and trying it again because it's going to prompt them to do it. It's going to entice them to do it. This guy actually said, I apologize for not doing it. I hope somebody will finish the job, and I'm offering $150,000 to anybody that can. That is a dadgum bounty placed on the head of Donald Trump. And the DOJ published that, put that out publicly? That's criminal. The DOJ should be on trial. Merrick Garland should go to prison for that. I mean, that's absolutely insane that they allow something like that to happen. But they did it. And you got Joe Biden. Joe Biden, who says, if you don't vote for me, or if you vote for Donald Trump, man, you ain't black. Or about Barack Obama, where he says he's the first articulate, clean black man, and man, that's something. Or he eulogized Robert Byrd, who was the grand cyclops of the KKK, at his funeral and said he was the finest man he ever knew. Or calls these urban integration areas urban jungles, racial jungles. Was against busing of blacks and whites together. This is the kind of stuff where you said, okay, well, this is a good idea to make this guy president of the United States. Well, he was brain dead then, and he's brain dead now. Now you're seeing through it. It's okay for Kamala Harris to fake a black accent or to pretend to be something that she's not. The other day, she was speaking to a group of Hispanics, and she went immediately into a Cuban accent, which is like, where the F is this coming from? You got Hillary Clinton, who does the black accent and talks about hot sauce in the purse. You got Pete Buttigieg eating fried chicken and hot sauce with Al Sharpton. I mean, at what point in time, Bill Clinton dressed up in blackface. Don't get me started on Justin Trudeau or Senator, what's her name, Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, who got into college, got into office, and did everything she ever could, even got a job as a professor at Harvard, making $400,000 a year, all because she pretended to be Native American. And then when she got her DNA test back, she wasn't any of that. But yeah, that's okay. We let people like that get away with stuff like that. But God forbid the comedian makes fun of anybody like that. We got to cancel those people. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. So that's why when I sit there and I go, I don't know if I want to tour anymore or not. I don't know if I want to do live shows anymore. At this stage in the game, I wonder if it's worth it anymore. Because again, people don't know how to laugh. They don't know how to laugh at themselves. And that's a big thing for me. You got to learn to laugh at yourself. If you can't do that, you got a problem. You're living a miserable existence if you can't laugh at yourself. If you can't joke around, I come from the deep South, man. I grew up on baseball teams that had blacks, whites. We stayed in hotel rooms together, traveled on the same bus together. We showered in the same room together. If you've ever been in a football locker room, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're my best friends to this day. It never crossed our mind. You know why? Because we grew up in a generation, Generation X grew up in a generation where that shit was put behind us. Our parents actually worked and pushed and tried to make sure that we grew up in a generation where we weren't focused on skin color. We invited our black friends and our white friends and our Hispanic friends. They all came to the parties. We all camped out together. We all played ball together. We all did those things together. We never thought anything about it, and to this day, we're still the best of friends. But when pandering politicians like Barack Obama get in office and become the most divisive president in the history of the United States and start making law enforcement, the enemy, and start making sure that people who have this idea that they're oppressed get a larger sense of manufactured victimhood. And so they start fighting back. And listen, we live in a country where the majority of Fortune 500 companies always have a chief diversity officer. That's what we have in America these days. We have the biggest companies in the world, the biggest companies in America that have chief diversity officers. I mean, we've had affirmative action, we've had civil rights, we've had critical race theory, we've had social emotional learning. On down the line, we've had DEI, we've had all of these so-called equality and equity initiatives out there, and yet you're still going to tell me, and you got Kamala Harris who's going to get up there and say, well, we may not all start in the same place. Okay, we might not all start in the same place, but we all need to end in the same place. Okay, that's called communism. We don't want that, all right? We should have a bigger problem with that than the person who laughs at their pandering bullshit. So come on, folks. I want you to wake up and realize that the initiative, the agenda that's out there is dangerous for the future of America. Let's defend free speech. Let's defend people's right to say it, whether it's the government trying to shut them down or some corporate entity. Let's defend. Listen, again, Colin Kaepernick had every right in the world to protest whatever the hell he was protesting. The problem is he was doing it on the company time and dime. He was doing it on the sideline of an NFL game. And you know what? I'm enough libertarian that I can even argue for his right to kneel down in that moment. I thought it dishonored our veterans. I thought it dishonored our active duty military. I thought it dishonored those who have sacrificed. But I understand the freedom he has to be an asshole. Okay? He did it. It was disrespectful. But when you start talking about all cops are bad and wearing socks and shoes that say pig on it with a picture of a pig dressed like a cop, I start to have a problem with that because now you're just being an asshole. And so whether you have the right to do it or not doesn't make it right. And that's the big issue for me. But I want us to get back to a point where people, I got a song coming out called What Happened to That in just a few weeks. We got Watered Down coming out October 4th. Go get it. And then in a couple of weeks, we got Like God Does and What Happened to That coming out simultaneously. We'll complete the 6-song EP, the 5-song EP. And in the song What Happened to That, I asked the question. I said, it used to be against the law to burn our flag. What happened to that? There'd be those who would argue and say, well, that's a freedom expression. Yeah, but you might have the right to do it, but it ain't right to do it. It's very disrespectful. It's very dishonoring to do that because, again, if you start burning your institutions, if you start burning your symbols, if you start burning things that are emblematic that represent something far bigger than what they are, because a flag is more than a stitched piece of cloth in red, white, and blue here in America. It represents something. It represents lives. It represents sacrifice. It represents freedom. Represents the people who have died to give us that freedom. And so you got to be careful with all of those things. You got to be careful with all of those things. So here we are, folks. Here we are. Cancel culture is real. It never works. It never works. Ask Morgan Wallen. Ask Joe Rogan. All these others that they've tried to cancel. They tried to cancel people like Louis C.K. for taking his dinger out and whacking it while he was in the room with other female comedians. And Louis C.K. comes back. He's bigger than ever. Yeah, he's gross. He was gross. What he did was, reprehensible. But he did it in the age of the Me Too movement, and so they tried to cancel him out. And but he's back. They always come back. So again, your efforts are wasted, folks. You live your life. I'll live my life. If I disgust you, that's perfectly fine by me. I got enough people in my life who love me for who I am, and that is enough for me to be satisfied. And if They decide they don't like me, I'll go move to that private island somewhere. Now, whoever owns the island won't know I'm there for a little while, but yeah, they'll figure it out. Okay, that's enough about all that. Gio, thanks for putting up with me. Stay tuned. We got tons of episodes coming up of the Chad Prather Show with some great, great guests, and I'm looking forward to those conversations. Hope you're enjoying it. Please leave us a rating and a review, 5 stars. Don't cancel me yet, but help drive us up the charts in our category. Last I looked, we were just around number 82, I think, in our category. So let's keep driving a little bit higher. We need a bigger audience, and it's hard. It's hard to keep an audience when you go independent. It really is. And you know what? Keep speaking the truth, man, and keep having fun with it. Let me just finish all this by saying, keep having fun with it. Don't be scared. And there's nothing off limits to you, okay? This is America. And I know social media is going to try to censor you. They will. There's certain words they don't like. There's certain images they don't appreciate. There's certain things they don't want on a video. I get that. That's between you and that private company. But let me tell you something. Keep speaking the truth, folks. Don't be afraid of the cancel culture. Don't even be afraid of the boycott culture. Screw them. Screw them. We need people who are going to stand up, who are going to deliver the truth, and we need it now more than ever. You want to know why I've talked more about God in the last, 3 months than I have probably in the last 5 years? Because I know that politics ain't going to change this country. If we don't get back to God, get back to faith, get back to truth, and we're in trouble. We're screwed. There's no foundational there's no guiding light. There's no foundational principle anymore. There's no value system to lead us. So we got to get past all that stuff. And for what it's worth, don't engage in cancel culture. Boycott. You can boycott all you want. If you don't like it, don't use it. You don't have to. That's the beauty of America. It's the beauty of freedom. PratherTees.com has some cool shirts, hats. We got some new stuff out there. Go check them out. We've always got some new stuff coming, and we got some good deals on there as well. But WatchChad.com's got my live schedule. Drop us a line, chad@thechadprathershow.com. Join the community at thechadprathershow.com. Drop us your email address. We'd love to stay in touch with you and share these episodes with your family and friends. If you're out there driving the roads, be safe, especially you truckers out there. Thanks for doing what you do. And I want to say God bless to our veterans, our active duty military, our law enforcement, our firefighters, EMT, EMS, people that are keeping the power on. My gosh, you first responders keep this country running, and we love you, and I'm thankful for you. We will talk to you next time.